Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some of faith's absolute toughest questions. But here's the twist. Instead of just giving you a list of answers, we're going to look at a whole new framework from theologian Dr.George Basileos for how to even approach them. It's a real game changer.
All right, let's just jump right in with the big one. The question of all questions, right? This is a challenge that, honestly, hits close to home for just about everyone, especially when we see suffering up close in our own lives or just by turning on the news.
So here's where it gets interesting. Before we even try to form an answer, Dr. Basileos says we have to stop and diagnose the question itself. Where is it really coming from? Is this an intellectual puzzle someone is trying to figure out, or is it a cry of pain from a hurting heart?
And that distinction, well, it's absolutely everything. A question coming from the mind, maybe something that came up in a philosophy class, that calls for a thoughtful, logical response. But a question that comes from the heart, from a place of real grief, that person doesn't need a sermon. They need presence. They need someone to just be there with them in their pain.
Understanding this one single distinction is the key that unlocks a really powerful three-step framework. And you can apply this to pretty much any tough question about faith you'll ever encounter.
So here's how it breaks down. Step 1 is diagnose. Like we said, figure out if the question is coming from the mind, the heart, or, and this is important, the will. Step 2 is ask. This is all about using questions to gently explore what's underneath, instead of just launching into a lecture. And finally, step 3 is focus, which is all about bringing the conversation back to what really matters, the core beliefs.
Getting that diagnosis right is the critical first step. The root might be intellectual, a genuine puzzle for the mind. Or it could be emotional, a deep pain in the heart, like someone who is just plain angry at God after a terrible loss. But there's that third source we have to think about, the will. This is when a question isn't really about confusion or pain at all, but about a desire to live a certain way without feeling guilty about it. And each one of these, they require a totally different approach.
Okay, so once we've diagnosed the source, we move on to step 2, ask, don't preach. And one of the most effective ways to do this is with a really cool technique, rephrasing the question to show the hidden assumptions behind it.
Take this question. You've probably heard it before, maybe even wondered about it yourself. It is incredibly challenging, and our first instinct is to jump into this super complex theological explanation about free will and God's foreknowledge. But hold on. Instead of doing that, just watch what happens when we rephrase.
See what that does? By rephrasing it to, are you asking why God didn't just create robots, we cut right to the heart of the matter. It instantly exposes the hidden assumption that maybe a world without real free will, a world full of robots, would be better. It completely shifts the conversation, but it does it gently, opening up a way more interesting discussion about what love and choice are all about.
And that brings us to the final step in the framework, focus on the foundation. This is all about getting to the core of belief and not getting distracted by all the secondary issues that, a lot of times, are just excuses to avoid the main event.
I love this analogy. Think of it like a swimming pool. The deep end, that's the absolute non-negotiable core of the Christian faith, the death and resurrection of Christ. Now, a lot of other questions, about the details of Noah's Ark or Jonah and the whale, they're in the shallow end. They're part of the story, sure, but they are not the foundation. And often people will just splash around in the shallow end because they're trying to avoid having to deal with the deep water.
This all leads to this really powerful concept, the counterfeit principle. Think about it. Bank tellers aren't trained to spot fake money by studying thousands of different kinds of fakes. That'd be impossible. Instead, they become experts by handling real money, day in and day out, until they know its look and feel instinctively. In the exact same way, the best way to deal with tough or false ideas is to get so familiar with the core truth that anything else just feels wrong.
So when you put all this together, you start to see that this entire framework, it's not about winning arguments. It's not about having the cleverest comeback or being the person with the most facts. It's pointing towards something much, much deeper. The true purpose of apologetics, of defending the faith, isn't really to convert people with clever logic. It's to meet people exactly where they are, in their intellectual confusion, in their emotional pain, or even in their willful resistance, and to gently point them toward the source of life, truth, and healing. It's about being a signpost, not a salesperson.
And in the end, as C.S. Lewis put it so perfectly, it really all comes down to a choice of the will. This framework isn't about forcing an answer on anyone. It's about clearing away all the noise so that we can see the fundamental choice more clearly. And it leaves us with the ultimate question, which direction will our will choose to face?